What is up, you guys? Orlando here with Elisha Record Studio. If you didn't saw the video last week, I recommend you watch that first because that's the first part. This one is the second part, and we're gonna be talking about different tracks within Cubase. Go watch that. I'm gonna leave the link in the screen someplace and come back here so you can watch this one.
Watch me take control.
So let's jump right in. And in the last video, we saw that with the letter T, you can pull up this menu, this dialog. And the next step, of course, keep dialog open because we're gonna create a bunch of tracks. And we're gonna start today with the group track. And this one is really important. Configuration, as usual, mono, stereo, or any other configuration that you wanna add it as. I use all the time this in stereo, of course, because we want to create groups of instruments, in this case for mixing, and stereo is the best way to go. And outputs, here you can select the stereo out, is the only one I have right now. Let's name this, for example, vocals. We're gonna pretend that these three audio tracks that I have here, audio 1, 2, and 3, actually this is 2, let's change that. Audio 1, 2, and 3, it's vocals, right? So I want to route all those vocals to a group channel so I can process them in a bus. This is creating a bus. This is what the concept is. You route all those tracks to a group channel. In this case, in Cubase, it's called group tracks. And then you process in that track, and you don't have to process individually, and you spend less resources from your computer and saves you time pretty much. So let's do that. I'm gonna select all these tracks. I'm gonna hold Shift, Option, and then I'm gonna go here to the inspector. And with those keys pressed, I'm gonna pick here now groups, vocals. And once I do that, every track right there is gonna go to vocals, vocals, and vocals. Now all of them are routed here, and here I can add all my inserts, all my effects, whatever I want to add. The other way to use them is I'm going to create 2 more, and I'm gonna name one of them, let's name it drums, for example, and the other one, let's name it bass. In the same way that you did the routing with the audio tracks, you can do routing with group tracks. And the next step is creating another group track that we're gonna call mix bus. So instead of using the stereo out, now we're gonna use a mix bus to route all of our group tracks. And we're gonna do the same, Shift, Option, go to the inspector and select mix bus. Now our mix bus is gonna become our stereo out in some sense. This is the place where you can add generic processing for all your tracks, for all the song in general. This is called top-down mixing. When you start on the mix bus, then go down to individual group tracks, and then you go down to individual tracks. And in that order, you're gonna save processing because you're not gonna have to do as much in the individual levels as you do on top. So you do the heavy lifting on the mix bus and then on the group tracks. And then when you come to the individual tracks, you barely have to do anything at all. This is a more effective way to work. So if that makes sense, those are group tracks. That's how I like to use them on a basic level. The next track we have here is effect tracks. Now, effect tracks lets you select the effect that you want to use from the get-go. In this case, I have a reverb here. That's really good. So I'm gonna have reverb. Gonna name that. Gonna create that effect track. And now you're gonna see a folder created for effect channels. Now, this is the way to use reverbs or delays or anything that you want to send to any track. For example, to any audio track, I will go to send and then go to reverb right here. And then you have the sends, as you can see here. I'm sending that signal from that audio track to the reverb. You can select the effect, the configuration right here as well. I like to leave them in stereo unless you're doing a mono delay or something like that. I wouldn't use mono for stereo effects like reverbs and delays and so forth. But sometimes you need the mono configuration, and you can enter a name, same, you can create how many tracks you want, and you can create as many effects as you want, as you can see here. Now, the next track I have here is a VCA channel. This one is really, really interesting. Let's say on the mix bus, you have an automation. I'm gonna pick an automation right here, and you're lowering the volume on that specific part of the song. You have now an automation created on the mix bus. But if you go here to the mixer, if you try to lower the volume of that track, as you can see, you're not gonna be able to do that because you already have an automation. So VCA Tracks comes in really, really handy because now you can definitely use a VCA track to manipulate the automations on all of those tracks. So the way I like to use them, because it's really simple, is going to the specific track that you want to create the VCA channel to, right click on it, and then you're gonna see this menu, add VCA fader to selected channel. So I'm gonna create a VCA channel for the mix bus. And as you can see, it's already linked one. And now if I move this fader, look what happens. You can see the extra volume right there in this automation right here. So this is the automation to your automation. So this is extra control that Cubase gives you in case you have a bunch of automations on a track, but you generally need to bring that track at a lower volume or do some extra automation on that side. You can definitely do that, and you can do automations on that track as well. So as you can see here, you can definitely automate the automation. So that's super extra control there with the VCA channel that you can create for your tracks. Super handy to have that option there, because if you have automations and you don't want to tamper with the automations or move them around, you want to just have a general drop in volume, for example, or volume boost, right? You use a VCA channel for that. The next one is the marker track. Let's create a marker track here. I'm gonna put it on top. Let's change the color so you can actually see that really well. So the marker track is a track that you use to create markers in your song. So let's say that you want to create a marker for the intro, one for the verse, one for the hook. The way I like to use markers is I like to go here on top. You select where you want to have the first marker, and then you create a cycle marker. Now I can name it in the description, for example, intro, and that's gonna be named intro. I like to use cycle markers because the other type of markers, it's this one right here, which is a position marker, and it's gonna create kind of a tiny flag, and you can definitely put a name to it. For example, you can do that, and let's change the color to red, and you can duplicate that as well to allow you to create as many markers as you want and to name them. You have a more visual way to work on your song, and you know where the verse is, you know where the hook is, and you can do a bunch of cool stuff with it. For example, if you double click on the outro here on this selection, it's gonna select only that. You cannot do this with the verse, with the actual position markers, but you can do that with the cycle markers. If I have zoom in, and now I'm in this view, right? I cannot see the marker tracks anymore unless it's these lines right here, but I don't see the name, I don't see anything on top, and I want to have them all the way on the top, visible at all times. The way I like to do that is to go here to this menu, and there's a tiny thing here that says divide track list. And then it creates a divider here that you can add more tracks on top, and those are not gonna move. So I can totally move this marker track up here. And now, all of a sudden, if I'm moving here on these tracks right there, it's always gonna be visible to me. So that's really, really good. And that's the way I like to use marker tracks. The next track here is the ruler track. I'm not gonna talk too much about it because this thing, I don't remember the last time I used it. I never use it, but technically you can select seconds here. You can select time code. For example, if you wanna have seconds there, which is really useful. For example, if you're composing and you wanna know the minutes, not precisely the bars, that could be useful, but I rarely use them really. The next track that I have here that it's super useful and is something that you should use all the time is the folder track. Let's create a vocals folder track right here. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all my vocals, all of this, just gonna select them all, just drag them to that folder, and then I can pretty much minimize. So this is a way to clean up your project so it's visually more appealing. It's better if you're working with a bunch of tracks. This is the way to go. Just create folder tracks to organize your projects. I use them all the time. And those are the other tracks that I wanted to talk to you about. It's not all of them. Of course, there are more tracks here. The tempo track, signature track. Cubase is one of those softwares that is really, really complete. And we're gonna be touching on individual tracks like this ones in future videos. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any other video from us. And guys, see you on the next one. Bye bye.